you're in it, you really don't understand.
You know, this country is hurting. These people are hurting.
I've spent many nights sleepless, wondering how I'm going to feed my kid.
The poverty definition. Oxford English Dictionary defines poverty as the state of being very poor.
The U.S. Census says 46 million live in poverty. It's the highest in decades. And for a family of 4, poverty is defined as living with an income of $22,000 or less.
But what truly is poverty? A state of poverty is lacking the resources and capability required to live an adequate, dignified human existence. Current poverty measurements. How is poverty measured? Poverty around the world is measured through income, housing, food, utility, clothing, education, and healthcare. This contributes to the person's overall quality of life. However, in the United States, we mainly measure poverty through income and consumption, which makes up the official poverty measure. This is based on a food basket threshold.
There are numerous failings that exist within the official poverty measurement. The first and foremost is that the threshold is set at 3 times the food basket for an American household. At the time this number was devised, the measurement also happened to coincide with 50% of the median household income. However, over the last half-century, the OPM has progressively disintegrated and is less accurate at capturing the true number of those in poverty. The food basket of Americans now is only truly set at 1/5 or 1/6 of the family's expenditure, while the price of living has increased substantially. The OPM only accounts for pre-tax income and disregards any in-kind benefits or near cash, nor does it take into account non-discretionary expenses, which can have a significant impact on the family. In addition to the OPM, there is also
determined by setting the threshold at a percentage of the median household income. The relative measure is flexible to recent changes and developments in society. Iceland explains how relative measures can be deceptive over time, particularly during periods of economic growth and recession. Similar to the supplemental measurement, the quasi-relative measure is able to address the weaknesses of strictly absolute and relative measures, evaluating individual necessities in dollar amounts. The measure cannot detect all changes in consumption.
the potential poverty measurement. We would like to introduce an alternative measure, the potential poverty measurement. It is a suggested theoretical measure to gain access and understanding to poverty.
The 34th percentile of median household resource spending reflects one standard deviation from the median in a typical distribution. In an attempt to improve the measurement of individual capability, expenditures are multiplied by 25%.
The potential poverty measurement considers additional factors not accounted for in a supplemental measure,
such as household composition, geography, inflation or recession, and consumer index fluctuation over the years. We would like to clarify that there are two types of poverty, financial and capability. Financial poverty is deprivation of monetary means, usually due to the lack of income. Capability poverty refers to the inability to achieve certain functions in life. Financial poverty can impact the likelihood of being capability poor. For example, bad health due to the inability to afford adequate care. This is the most common scenario. However, if an individual is lacking in capability, it does not necessarily affect his financial means. For example, possessing billions but having bad health because of a terminal illness. There also exists financial poverty but not capability poverty, like a monk who chooses to live a meager existence. We are concerned about both types of poverty, but want to focus on those that are both financially and capability poor, for they are the ones we truly need to aid.
Resources accounted for in our measure include taxes, income credits, out-of-pocket medical costs, work-related expenses, childcare, child support, social securities, individual assets, savings, debts, and credits. To best reflect the actual situation of those in poverty, the PPM excludes the following government benefits when setting the threshold. These resources are specifically excluded because they directly affect how poverty is measured, and without these resources, a baseline is formed for how benefits are allocated.
The PPM is basically a modified SPM. It employs a new poverty threshold that is updated with information on expenses for food, clothing, shelter, and utilities that families face. Results show higher SPM poverty rates than the official measure for most groups. Kathleen Short.
A question we must ask ourselves is, what is this person able to do and to be?
Capability is defined as life, access to health care, and a sense of self-worth.
Resources can be measured tangibly, but how can we access capability?
Capability can be measured through a consensus survey using a qualitative questioning and statistical analysis to understand poverty. Participants will be surveyed with yes or no questions. Based on how the participants answer these questions, a consensus on poverty levels can be reached. We've identified 4 categories that pertain specifically to our capability measurement.
Capability in terms of the potential poverty measure can be divided into sections of basic needs deemed pertinent for living an adequate life. To better understand an individual's true capabilities, a variety of questions aim to determine overall well-being. Based on how the participants answer additional follow-up questions, a consensus on poverty levels can be reached.
My name is Terry. I'm 42 years old. I'm a consultant for a resort in Orlando. I've lived with my wife and 6 children at this motel for a little over 2 years now.
His wife stays at home to care for their 6 children. Although she does not have child care expenses, she cannot contribute to the family income. Are they poor?
Alongside strained financial resources, Terry's wife lacks certain capabilities, such as a sense of connection to society and the opportunity for enjoyment of life. According to the PPM, they are defined as poor.
To understand the depth of poverty, our measure divides the poverty population into quintiles to calculate how drastically people fall under the poverty line. The threshold for median incomes is set at the 50% mark, measuring those who fall within the 0%, 25%, 75%, and 125% ranges. Measuring differences from the threshold for each individual or family indicates the seriousness of their circumstances. Benefits of the potential poverty measurement. Why is the PPM better than the OPM?
A supplemental poverty measure that also considers an individual's capabilities is able to reflect changes in tax and work support programs with annual calculations, account for varying household compositions, and reflect the ability to meet minimum living standards. While basing the threshold measurement on necessity spending, the economic status of the individual can accurately be viewed. Additional information about the overall well-being status evaluates the actual capability of the impoverished to achieve set goals and the ability to rise above the poverty threshold. This further enables them to attain a respected, dignified life.
I'm Larry Dodson. I work for Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. I'm 52 years old and I live with my wife and 2 children in a motel room in Kissimmee, Florida, and I have 5 children.
Larry has a serious heart condition that greatly affects his economic status. Although he qualifies for Medicaid and other forms of healthcare access, he has an abundance of medical out-of-pocket expenses. Is he poor?
Although Larry has the capability of healthcare, his financial resources do not improve because of the high costs of treatment. He is considered poor in respect to the potential poverty measure.
Critical views and flaws.
The obvious disadvantage of a primarily supplemental measure is the cost, estimated at $7.5 million for implementation. Blank explains in the Supplemental Poverty Measure that Congress was asked to appropriate $5 million to the Census Bureau and $2.5 million to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the 2011 and 2012 budgets, which is the cost of collecting the necessary data and producing and reporting the SPM on an annual basis. More complex than the official poverty measure, our potential poverty measure is comprised of in-depth statistical analysis that considers qualitative evaluations of a person's well-being. Due to the relative nature of the potential poverty measure, a moving poverty target is created that fluctuates with individual spending.
The way we measure a phenomenon affects the way we think about it. Multiple ways of looking at a problem can provide new insights and a better understanding of the nature of poverty in America. Rebecca M. Blank.
Above all poverty measurements, the proposed PPM considers both aspects of an individual's well-being, resources, and capabilities. Therefore, this method of measurement provides an accurate evaluation of poverty and how to effectively confront the widespread issue.